I am indeed grateful for the opportunity given to me to be in a meeting like this, which is attended by a large number of my countrymen working in this new country, the land of promise for the future. We always look upon every Indian who is in countries other than India as unofficial ambassadors of Indian culture, Indian tradition, Indian mores, because not being saddled with official red tapeism, bureaucratic rules and regulations, you are free in your own lives to present to humanity the best side of that ripe and mature civilization, at least 5 to 10,000 years old in that ancient land that is India. That is why each time that I come to this country to share our experience in a particular realm of the spirit and learn from the advances made in this country, I can never resist the call of friends like Vishrambai to come and meet and speak once again on some of the most precious features of our tradition. Not that you do not know it, not that you have forgotten, but it is always useful, fruitful to have new energizings from the eternal springs of truth. The subject given to me this evening is meditation. By a curious coincidence, it happens to be the same subject that I was asked to speak upon this morning at a meeting of the members of the Theosophical Society, which has sponsored my tour in this country this year. I might sound repetitious to people who were there present in the morning, but all the same, to present a picture of what we understand by meditation, I should deal with the whole theme. Meditation means different things to different people. Meditation has a meaning for an atheist, for a communist who doesn't believe in God. Meditation also has a meaning and a significance for a spiritual seeker. I confine myself to the theme of meditation in the context of spiritual life. Meditation for us is a means to attune ourselves, attune our consciousness to a greater, deeper, or a higher consciousness, that is the divine, which it is our object in life to reach, to realize, and to embody. Our consciousness, our mind, is normally turned towards so many things. The Katha Upanishad says that the doors of the self are cloven outward. That is why all the senses rush forward, outward. Hardly one in 1,000 looks within himself. And meditation is a means, a technique to learn how to look inwards, to be in a state of poise, quietude, in which one can listen to the Spirit. Sri Aurobindo, my teacher, he has a few lines in his epic Savitri where he says, in moments when life's cherished guests are left outside, in moments when life's cherished guests are left outside, and the inner lamps are lit, the Spirit speaks alone to our soul, and there are parts in us that grow towards the light. And when are those moments? They don't come all of a sudden. It will not do to say that I will be engaged in restless activity, throwing myself heart and soul in whatever nature involves me in, and suddenly at 7 o'clock I will choose to meditate. It never succeeds. All the rush of the moment pursues you in your prayer room, in your meditational sitting, making it a futile exercise to try to meditate. Meditation should be a peak period, a peak experience of a whole day preparation behind the veil, and that requires the building of a climate, the preparation of a background, under which alone meditation can be fruitful. And we have that master of yogic tradition, the great systematizer in India, Patanjali, who lived some 3,000 years ago, who says nobody can enter the portals of spiritual life unless he equips himself with a certain preliminary purification. Sri Aurobindo also says no spiritual life worth the name is possible without a minimum moral and mental purification. And this purification, equipment of oneself, is spread over what are called the preliminary discipline, requiring each person to weave these features in his day-to-day life. And the first of these requirements is non-injury. It is not physical non-injury that is meant. There is law to see to it that we don't indulge in physical violence. It is a mental and psychological non-injury, non-violence that is required of a serious and an earnest spiritual seeker. The mind, the ideas, the thoughts that one thinks, the feelings that one entertains, the emotions that one harbors, the life impulsions that one allows oneself to be driven by, they are to be freed from this inner violence, inner injury, hostility, anger, ill will, vengeance, rancor. All these are vibrations that do more soul violence than physical violence. and they burn up our own system. And it is incumbent on us to weed out all that smacks of the psychological injury, psychological violence from our system. And the sign that one has truly eliminated violence from oneself is when traditional enemies forget their hostility in the presence of such a person. As you are aware, in India, it is commonplace to see that in the hermitages of saints and sages, of God-realized men, a mongoose and a snake, a deer and a tiger cub lying together, forgetting that old traditional animosity. This is the first requirement of inner non-violence. The second condition is non-appropriation. It is again not physical non-appropriation that is meant, but that grasp of the mind, that vital desire to possess something that belongs to another and doesn't belong to me. That is an extension of greed, attachment to things over which I do not have a legitimate claim. That has to be eliminated. And the third is truthfulness. We are asked to speak the truth, not because it is a virtue, to avoid untruth, not because it is a sin, but because the nature of God is truth. And if we want to realize God, we have to give a prime place to truth in our life. We have to think the truth, feel the truth, and speak the truth. We cannot speak the truth if we allow untruth to mix up with our thinking or our feeling. And the one result of careful discipline of speaking always the truth is this: whatever such a person speaks comes true. This is called the power of fulfillment of speech, Vak Siddhi, by which a person who is habituated to speak only the truth, whatever comes from his lips, that comes true. You may try, and I assure it is going to be fulfilled. And the fourth is conservation of sex energy. We are not called upon to be celibates all the life or to be eternally practicing continence. What is required of us is to desist from dissipation of sex energy, utilization of sex energy for the purpose for which it is meant, and conservation of it for a higher purpose. And this is again not a religious dogma, not a fad of the moralists, but there is a whole science behind it. Sri Aurobindo explains in his book, small seminal book called The Brain of India, how in each human body, male or female, there are a number of sex fluids which grow as the body grows. And when the body comes to a certain stage in its growth, nature draws out those fluids for its own purpose of perpetuating the species. But if one can conserve it, let us compare it to water in the body. There is a heat that gathers, a warmth, a glow, and the whole system is astir, and the willpower gets energized. The will not only gets strong, but acquires a power of self-effectuation. Conserved still further, this heat, tapas, converts itself into light, an inner light called tejas, by which the brain gets illumined, the memory power gets quickened and sharpened, and amazing feats of memory are witnessed in such persons. Still further, both the inner heat and the inner light convert themselves into an inner electricity called vidyut, by which a self-effectuating will and a luminous mind, a luminous intelligence lift the level of life. Further on, this inner electricity converts itself into what is called ojas, that is the creative power of primal ether. This material creation is a result of a creative deployment of energies of ether, primal ether. Something of that creative power yields itself to the person who conserves his energy. And the final stage is when this ojas turns into virya, that is a spiritual potency, ensuring spiritual self-realization to the person concerned. There is this whole rationale, step by step, assuring the person who conserves these energies of a rapid fulfillment of his destiny. The next step is non-acceptance of loaded gifts in life. Each time we accept a loaded gift, a gift with a string, we place ourselves under obligation to another and lose our freedom of will, freedom of choice, freedom of action. This individual seeker should preserve his freedom. He should relate himself to the divine and not get under obligation to those around. Apart from these negative inhibitions, there is a set of 5 positive injections. And the first is contentment. We should learn to accept the circumstances of life in which we find ourselves as those best suited for our development. Accept the situation in life in which one is placed, either as a will of God or as a result of my past karma. Whatever the reason, I should accept them. Indeed, I can seek to improve upon them, but without that fevered excitement, without that complaint, without frustration, without making myself miserable and making others around me miserable. Set about patiently, but accept. The mother, my teacher, used to say that for a spiritual seeker, the circumstances in which he is placed are always those which are best designed to promote his spiritual evolution. And for one who accepts it in the right spirit, indeed they turn out to be so. That is contentment, a basic contentment to start with. Next is cleanliness. Cleanliness again is not an outer cleanliness by taking 8 times bath or 10 times bath as they do in many traditions. It is a psychological and an inner cleanliness. Cleanliness of food, psychological food that we take, thoughts, feelings, emotions. It is they that we consume more than the physical food. So they have to be kept clean. And third is study. There is much that we have to know. The most that we know is little. it always is paying to know what others have experienced on the path that we intend to tread. What is their experience? What are their directions? And one must study with interest, with humility, what the greater ones than us have written about. Those who have realized the higher consciousness, those who have achieved higher states of consciousness, when they write, it is not from the mind, it is not a composition, literary composition that they give. They are words charged with a certain electricity of the spirit. Their experience is embodied in what they write. And there have been many cases where a single word, where a single line from such scriptures, from such classics, has fired the spirit of many a seeker. Perhaps I should mention here that perhaps the first American who went from this country to our ashram, she was the daughter of President Wilson. One day she had never heard of Aurobindo. She was reading Aurobindo's essays on the Gita in the New York Public Library. And she was so much absorbed in it that she forgot the sense of time. And those people locked up the doors and they went, and she was forced to be there till the doors are opened the next day. It proved for her a providential arrangement, and she read it and consumed as many pages from the essays as possible. And the next thing that she did was to write to India, to Sri Aurobindo, whether she could come and see the person who has written such a treasure. And that was how Margaret Wilson came to India and joined our ashram and stayed there till she passed away some years later. There have been many such instances when such charged words, written words, have changed the pattern of many lives. Next is what is called austerity. Austerity, tapas, is not self-infliction of pain, denial of sleep and food, any kind of masochism, but it means a gathering of energies, marshalling of one's powers and faculties, and disciplining them to flow around the theme of one's choice. An inner discipline, conserving one's energies, mental, physical, spiritual, and directing them to a particular discipline aimed. That is called austerity, that is called tapas. And last, to have the humility to recognize that before this mighty challenge of life, the most that we can do is but puny little. To invoke the grace and the strength of God, to surrender oneself inwardly to a greater power, to the divine. And that is the last condition. When one has practiced these items of discipline, integrated them in one's daily life, then one becomes fit to enter into any kind of spiritual discipline. And in meditation, one has first to find one's posture, what is called asana. It is not that one must study all those 64 complicated postures that are described in treatises on Hatha Yoga. No. Each one has to find out that posture, that physical position which is most natural to him. Normally what happens, if we sit quietly for 5 minutes, there is a restlessness in the body. We tend to move our limbs, and that is because nature establishes in each one a balance. between the quantum of life energy that can flow into his body and what it cannot. Suddenly when the body is made to sit quiet, without movement, without activity, that life energy gathers and one feels restless, one sways, one moves. So it is advised that each one observes and finds that posture in which one can sit for a considerable time and forget the body. For some, the posture may be sitting on the ground cross-legged. For others, it may be sitting on a chair like this. For some others, it may be standing. But whatever the posture, the body has to be erect. The spine has to be erect. The chest, the nose and the head have to be in a straight line, so that the ascending energies from below and the descending energies from above may flow uninterrupted. That's the one important condition. Whatever your posture, find out that which is natural to you, but be straight, be erect during the period of meditation. The second step is to observe your breathing. There is an intimate connection between breathing and the state of the mind. When the mind is restless, when there are too many thoughts rushing about in the mind, if you observe, your breathing is fast and irregular. When the mind is quiet, the breathing is slow and fairly regular. So, breathing becomes a lever by which you can regulate the state of the mind. So, before we meditate, we observe our breathing and slow down the breath. Make it as slow as possible and take a few, say 5 or 6 deep breaths. Draw very slow and leave out equally slow. When you do that, you find the whole mind falling silent, the thought activity lessening, and the things coming under control. This principle has been developed into a regular science of pranayama, which is not too relevant for our purpose of meditation. It is enough if we utilize the knowledge of the principle that breathing is intimately connected with the state of the mind. Once you bring the mind under certain control, then there is what is called a gathering back, a calling back of the 1,000 dispersed threads of consciousness which are gone in all directions. You bring them together, gather them, and you can't concentrate in a vacuum. You can't concentrate in a vacuum, so you need something on which the mind can be fixed. All the energies of the mind, the faculties of the mind that have been gathered need to be fixed upon something. And that you can take a form of God, or a pleasing form that reminds you of God or relates you to God, or a name of God, or a sound or a syllable, a mantra which is potent, or a theme, or an idea, or a concept. God as love, God as peace, God as silence. And fix yourself to that thing. In the very nature of things, this fixation, concentration cannot last for a long time, and you just relax. This letting down of the mind, letting flow of the mental ideas, mental consciousness on that theme, on that form, on that sound, allowing the consciousness to dwell step by step, working out a theme, that is called meditation. Meditation is not keeping to a fixed form around and concentrating upon it. It is like the flow of a oil in a wick, to quote the classical analogy, where we allow our consciousness to dwell upon a name, a form, but it is moving, it is not stationary. And this exercise of pouring one's consciousness on a chosen theme, on a chosen form, on a chosen sound, that is meditation. And as you gradually develop that, practice that regularly, what happens is you forget yourself. The knower is forgotten and the known alone remains. The self, the divine, God, the form, the murti, that alone remains, and you are merged, you become one with it, and nothing else remains. That is called trance, that is called samadhi, at one minute. But before this beautiful state can arrive, there are difficulties. The moment we sit, we feel there is an invasion of thoughts, and we complain, we never got so many thoughts when we are not meditating. The moment we sit to meditate, we get too many thoughts. But it is not so. Thoughts are always there in the atmosphere around us. 90% of the thoughts which we think are our own are not ours. They are there floating in the atmosphere. Thoughts of people who have passed, thoughts of people with whom we have mixed, all kinds of origin can be explained to the thoughts that are so swarming around us. When we are occupied with something or other, we don't take cognizance of that. But when we are alone, we see what they are. But most of them are not our own. There are three ways of dealing with the thoughts. One, what Swami Vivekananda recommended is to let the thoughts flow. He said, don't interfere with the thoughts, but don't participate in the thoughts either. Let them flow. You just observe. And when you do that, gradually this thought movement slows down, and one day it comes to a standstill. But before it comes to a standstill, it will have revealed many corners in yourself which need to be corrected, many corners which need to be lit, but ultimately it comes to a standstill. Another way, a more strenuous one, is to stop each thought as it comes as an outsider, bar its entry, and thus build up what is called a vacant mind. The third way, and perhaps the simplest way, is to ignore the thoughts. Don't bother about the thoughts. Let them play on the surface. Your main attention should be on the subject of your choice, the theme that you have chosen. After all, interest is the basis of concentration. If we are that interested, the bulk of our mind is attending to the theme. The surface mind attends to the thoughts that play about. That doesn't interfere with my central transaction. Just as when I am talking to you and when you are listening, there are other sounds outside. We take cognizance of them. Something is registered somewhere, but they don't interfere with our communion. And this leads to what is called bifurcation of consciousness. In this, that a surface part of our being, consciousness, deals with the mechanical side of life. But always something central, something deep, keeps aloof, watches, sanctions or doesn't sanction. and is ready to preside over nature instead of being a slave of nature. This is the effect of bifurcation of consciousness that is developed during meditation. Having said this much, I must add that whatever peace, tranquility, serenity, devotion that we gain after successful meditations, they must be prolonged during non-meditational hours. Meditation is not an end in itself. Meditation is a way and a means to change our nature, to recast our consciousness. And that can only be done when the attitude of meditation, the spirit of meditation is prolonged during our day-to-day life when we don't actually sit and meditate. There must be that attitude, that approach that we have during meditation even in regular day-to-day affairs. Then alone meditation becomes an active force to change the pattern of our life and become a factor for change of human nature into the divine nature. I am often asked whether it is necessary to have regular timings. I say yes. Each one of us must find out what time is likely to be least disturbed and fix that time every day. There is a cycle in our lives, a cycle of day, cycle of week, cycle of month, cycle of a year, and so on. So each day, if we fix a time for meditation, you will see that after 6 or 7 days, there is a helpful presence waiting for you to sit for meditation at that time. And you get an unseen help. This is essential. Traditionally, it is considered that an hour and a half before sunrise is the most favorable time for meditation in the mornings, because energies of nature have not yet sprung into life and everything is helpful for ingathering. Similarly, an hour and a half after dusk, after sunset, is also the favorable time, because natural energies start getting dormant and there is less disturbance to a quieting mind. It is left to each one whether one can take advantage of this help in nature. But what is important is that we have to fix a time and keep to that time. And in the beginning, we must never meditate for more than 15 to 20 minutes at a time. The maximum must be half an hour. If you meditate more, it becomes a habit and the body gets into a certain inert state. For a meditation to be dynamic, vigilant, it has to be brief and intense. There is what is called a static meditation. There is what is called a dynamic meditation. A static meditation is just when we sit quiet and let things happen. Sleep, thoughts, ideas, everything. But we just close our eyes and sit. But a dynamic meditation is when you give a direction to our feelings and thoughts, when we keep out undesirable things, keep a certain vigilance, refuse to go to sleep, and relight our aspiration every now and then. These are some of the points of instruction or information, whatever you put it, from experience that I could offer to you all. And if you have any questions on this or any theme of your choice, you are welcome to ask. They give only a preliminary equipment You have to use that equipment to heighten your consciousness, to either deepen it or broaden it or heighten it. If I am satisfied with my present state of consciousness, I don't need meditation at all. But if I want to change it, if I want to extend the range or deepen, and grow in my stature, then I have to practice some technique, some discipline. And for many, meditation is the technique. But for some who are essentially dynamic by nature, who can't sit in one place for 5 minutes, they don't need to meditate. Their way is through karma yoga, action, consecration of energies to God, release of oneself from the motivation of ego and desire, and work selflessly without claim for the fruit of works in the spirit of the Gita. For them, work itself becomes meditation. So there are people who are emotionally developed, who are strong in the heart, and who want to relate themselves to God, to the divine, through love, through devotion. They do it through prayer, through singing, through meditation, but they don't need to meditate. Meditation is for those who feel the need of quieting the mind, of receiving through the mental consciousness. So meditation is not the only way, but for many it is an essential way.
This consists the introduction of so-called transcendental meditation, which was given as a shortcut to people who are engaged in day-to-day activity. They are asked not to change their lifestyle, but still they can do meditation. Is there any truth to that? And the second part of the question is, medical science picked up on the idea of transcendental meditation or meditation as such to treat certain medical conditions, most of like high blood pressure and things. What's the truth to both these statements? Is to say, is shortcut possible? Second, are there any physiological effects on the body of meditation?
As far as the first question is concerned, there is really no shortcut in these matters. It only opens a window. It only opens a door on the subtler side of life. That is all. It does not do what it claims to do. I have had occasion to meet hundreds of people who have practiced that. And I have learned how in the beginning they are helped to withdraw that agitated mind, that tension harassed mind, a little deeper. That's all. They don't follow it up. It is a starting point. You can't stop there. But most people stop there thinking that it is the end. 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening. It is an open door, it is an opening of a window. But thereafter one has to go through. It is not, you don't go to the source of thought as they advertise. No. You just go behind the surface level of consciousness. That is all. It is not a shortcut to any kind of deliverance or peace. It fails after some time, it becomes a routine. Second, it is possible, and we have found it possible in experiments in the various institutes of yoga in India and in certain hospitals whose management believes in yogic techniques, that the peace that is gained during meditation can be utilized for curing certain imbalances in the body. There have been documented evidences that yogis who are in trance, who are in an undisturbed state, from them the vibrations were relayed and reached to patients who are mentally disturbed, and they quietened down. The vibration of peace cannot be bottled up. And yogic therapy is a truth. Meditation as a means to cure certain psychosomatic disorders is a truth. Yes?
You mentioned just a while ago dynamic meditation versus static meditation.
Yes. Static meditation is when we close our eyes and sit in a posture, allowing things to happen. Things happen, ideas come, emotions come, and we participate in them. We are just sailing along. No change ever takes place except the habit of sitting in one place for a half an hour or 1 hour. That itself indeed indirectly promotes a certain stability in the body. That's all. But a dynamic meditation is, supposing I meditate for peace, when thoughts start coming, when emotions start coming, I quieten those which are opposed to peace. I invoke those which promote peace. I exercise my discrimination and vigilance to give a direction to meditation instead of allowing things to happen with myself as a helpless victim, helpless bystander. I exercise a monitoring control over the developing movement of meditation. And that is a dynamic meditation, where at the end of each meditation you are one step ahead. You feel and concretely that you have added one brick more to the edifice that is being shaped. Yes.
What I'd like to know is when I am in meditation and going into the subconscious, because as I started meditating very, very small, now as I'm running across people who are drinking and on drugs that have come into my life for me to help, I don't understand, and I guess I do get annoyed even though I am patient. So a lot of these people, their chakras are developing, their different parts of their body are being awakened by going into subconscious mind through this, forcing of the chakras to open by drugs. Now, Dr. Douglas Baker, who I attended many of his lectures, he said, well, if you're sitting for 20 years in meditation, you're not getting anywhere. He says, I think it's fine, I'm a doctor, go on LSD. And he says it's great. Then he turns around and says your aura will be ruined for many lifetimes if you're going to put artificial things in your body. So I would like very much to know, as these kids come to me for help, that are on, especially, I don't want to mention the countries, but certain countries where I have respected highly, and then they come to me and they tell me that something's wrong with me because I'm not drinking, I'm not smoking, and they're going to open their chakras faster and better instead of doing it by the pure meditation slowly. I'd like to know what your opinion is on that.
Yes. Drugs, LSD and other means that are used, they are a spiritual suicide. They disintegrate the personality, destroy the consciousness that has come to the human stage. It pushes it backwards. And no man who has taken a drug is the same thereafter. He may feel what is called high when that thing is active, but when he has come back, they have told me that they find they are not the same. There is some regret somewhere, but by force of habit, by weakness, they may continue. But each time they go down in the scale of evolution. And it is not true that chakras are awakened by drugs. No, it is not. It is an illusion. What takes place is a disintegration in the centers of consciousness and not an awakening.
Well, the 3 billion brain cells that we have in our brain are all the other cells in the body. We can rejuvenate, we can even, rebuild the liver, But the only area of the human body that cannot be rebuilt is the the brain cells. Now, if every time you take a drink or a cigarette or drugs, and some of those brain cells are being destroyed, and it cannot be replaced, it cannot be rejuvenated, replenished, then eventually these people that are doing these things, then these brain tissues are being
destroyed, and there is always a gap and a hole left. I met people who have stopped drugs, say, for 10 years and 8 years, but still something, they always feel a gap, a hole somewhere in the being which was destroyed, and it can't be made up, and with the best spiritual help they have not been whole thereafter. So it is a permanent, irremediable disaster to take to these means for spiritual unfoldment. They take it for the kick of it, well, they pay the penalty. But nobody shall do it or be encouraged to do it under the plea that one can go into a higher consciousness without all this bother of yogic discipline and self-observation and all that, or moral control, things like that, that the style of life can remain as it is and you can do pretty well what you like, and with this you can go. No.
Did you associate with people like this, or tell them just to leave you alone?
No, they should be told that it is harmful.
No, but I mean, would they tear down your spirituality? Because when these people come to me,
They can't. What we must do is, we must build an impersonal attitude when we meet them. We should not be personally involved.
don't tell them what to do.
If you are personally involved by sympathy, identity, well, something of their thing comes into you. But you must have an impersonal love, impersonal attitude of service and helpfulness, and then work. You will be more effective. If your personal emotions and things are not involved, but if you function from an impersonal level, the healing force, the helping force can pour through you more effectively. You have to become an impersonal channel to the force of healing or peace. You have to invoke that, but be impersonal. That's the surest wall to protect you from these intrusions from outside, but at the same time not shutting you from them.
You mentioned about meditation being an essential factor to change somebody's attitude, lifestyle. And if someone doesn't want to change, then of course meditation is out of question. But is it necessary to change the current way of thinking? For most people in the world, live their lives to enjoy life. They get this human life after who knows how many times they have decided to love this life and death. To enjoy this life that is so precious, is it not good enough? Why should this attitude be changed?
It is legitimate desire, legitimate object to enjoy life. We have to enjoy. Life is meant to be happy. Life is meant to derive the fullest enjoyment from the circumstances of life. But we fail to do it. Our lives are studded with failures, tensions, unhappiness, shocks, dissatisfactions. Nobody's life normally has more happiness than unhappiness. And that is because we have lost the art of living. We have to cultivate the right art of living in order to derive the maximum enjoyment. And meditation certainly does not deprive one of any legitimate enjoyment. Question is, what is enjoyment? Happiness, peace, serenity, or sensual enjoyment, sexual enjoyment? It is only a small part. The physical life, the physical enjoyment is only a small part. A man who is mentally unhappy, whatever physical enjoyment or sexual enjoyment he has, is he really happy? An emotional fullness, a mental peace, serenity, facing life with full ardor and having the fullness of physical life, that is complete life. Most of us are incomplete beings living on the surface. Techniques like meditation teach us to be full. In the Isha Upanishad, it is said that all this is for habitation by the Lord. Isha vasyamidam sarvam jagat. Tena tyaktena bhunjitha. Renounce and enjoy. Says you can truly enjoy when you renounce your claim for possession. So it is to teach you to enjoy more that spiritual techniques are offered. The whole tantric science tradition is that the Lord has created this universe for cosmic enjoyment, and each individual is intended to be a channel, an unobstructed channel for the enjoyment to reach the Creator. Each one has to enjoy. But when we limit ourselves, when we allow our ego to dominate, we shut ourselves from others, we stunt ourselves. We stunt our capacity to enjoy things. Meet life amply. Draw sustenance, enjoyment from everything. From see things that don't belong to you, see the nature, see the sun, see the trees. Learn to draw. The whole science of aesthesis is that, to draw enjoyment from things that you see. Beauty, harmony, rhythm, these are the objects of enjoyment. Physical enjoyment is just a part of it. Well, these are certain standpoints which you might consider. Yes?
Would you explain what point Aurobindo means by the descending power?
Yes. Sri Aurobindo, in common with the Eastern approach to the reality, conceives that this universe is a projection, a manifestation of God, a divine consciousness, and that is continuously pouring on earth from all sides. When we meditate, when we keep quiet and pray to the divine, we do feel something coming like a dew, like peace, serene thing, and settling upon us. Or you may feel a charge of power entering into your head or on your body. That is called the descending power. It is from our side, we call it descending. Ours is an ascending consciousness. And the helpful grace, the response that comes, is a descending consciousness. Though from some angle there is neither ascent nor descent, there is only one movement of consciousness. But when from our standpoint, what we pray from above, it is a descending movement. And both the ascending and the descending movement meet in the human being, and there is a junction. And a new consciousness, a new movement is born. Yes?
My point is like when a person practices a lot, having all the principles, what you said, communication, kindness, non-violence, inner non-violence, and moral and psychological discipline, all kinds, without even knowing the word of the person. What is why should a person know all those things when he practices a life?
Yes.
It's a matter of satisfaction that the person goes further and sits and meditates either dynamic or a static meditation, and they think they achieve.
the other person, without even knowing the meditation name, and he might achieve. I mean, he is satisfied, fully satisfied in his life, practicing the life.
He doesn't need to meditate, because there are some in whom the effects of meditation are automatically interwoven as a result of their style of life. They do not need to sit for 10 minutes or 15 minutes and meditate. In their daily life, they are practicing that. Their inner spiritual and moral fiber is strong, and they draw and they grow in evolution of consciousness. They grow spiritually without knowing it. There are many people whom I have met who are spiritual without calling themselves spiritual. There are many who have kept that religious label around them, and they are the worst crooks. I have met them. You see, so it really does not depend upon what we label or call, upon what we are and what we practice.
And another one is, like, if you believe God has created the whole world and human beings with full of emotions, experiencing sorrow or joy or sad or whatever in the life. Okay, this is what a human is, created to be. Okay, why do we need to overcome all these feelings?
Because
God has created us like that, and you believe things. Nobody can prevent things happening. We believe in that things has to happen. Whatever is going to happen, going to happen. Could you prevent?
By exercise of my will, I can change to a certain extent the course of events. And no human being is perfect. Each one is in a stage of evolution. So what I was 10 years ago, I am not today. I have either developed or gone back. And God gives freedom to each one to develop or not to develop. That is the free will given. And each one is meant to improve, to add new dimensions, to give up ignorance and add knowledge, to give up unhappiness and become naturally happy. So to become what is called perfect. The aim of life is not salvation but perfection. Perfection of the highest qualities that we have. Elimination of the animal heritages of evolution that we still have, what are called the asuric qualities, adaivic qualities, the negative qualities. In the measure in which I put behind me the negative qualities and develop the positive ones, I grow in my stature and become a fuller and an ampler man. The whole universe is in a crucible of progress and evolution. That is that.
But a man who has, like his life is meant that he's going to get improved. No matter what, things has to happen. If a robber has to be a robber.
Not necessarily.
Going to be a robber.
Not necessarily. Perhaps you don't know that there is a controversy, there is an interesting discussion among the scientists today that what is the fifth dimension? There are 3 dimensions of space. 4th dimension is time. So they are speaking today there is a 5th dimension, and that is my freedom to determine what will be my next step. Well, I shall rob or I shall keep quiet at home. That I have got the freedom. So it is not destined that I must be a robber. Yes, it is left to me. So individual, a man is respected because he has that freedom. An animal has no freedom. Man has come to a stage when he can exercise his choice, his freedom. And it is a freedom, as Sri Aurobindo says, to prosper or to perish. Yes?
Rainer Johnson, when the masters from India visited him, he was many years with different organizations, and then Rainer Johnson went on to become
Imprisoned splendor?
Right.
Right.
Well, this modern man, I know practically by heart, and he tells you that because karmically, every event that is manifestating in your life right now, nothing happens by chance. Your free will only lies in whether you're going to accept, consent, your inner attitude on what is happening on the outer. Circumstances are already set up. There's God's predestination, and man has a little bit of the cards dealt out where he can say, I earned so much by being good, I can do so much with this, I got so many seeds I can sow. By the same token, what you did last week, what you did last month, you're going to be rewarded or you're going to have to be paying for tomorrow. So everything is on a string. It's not, we can't get up in the morning and cut off what we did yesterday or a year ago. So the events that you have set in motion from your thoughts, your actions, a day, a month, you're going to have to pay. We can shoplift, but when we go out the store, God's going to say, hey, you took that, you robbed, you sent out a thought that wasn't good. You're going to pay either in the store or out of the store. So there is a certain amount of predestination and free will, yes. But by the time we karmically come in, our free will is determined only by how we, like you said so beautifully this afternoon, are you going to react to the situation and create a new karma, or are you going to just handle the situation your way? How you handle what is being dealt out will determine what's going to happen to your karma.
It is also true that I can modify considerable part of the karma which has followed me for my past actions by creating opposite karma, good karma, to replace the bad, also to modify to a certain extent. It is only some ineluctable part of the karma that I have to go through. But a large area of the karma is modifiable, surpassable, and replaceable by the opposite karma. But these are matters of controversy, and that's that.
The clay is still good.
Yes?
To make our work and our play more meditative, are there any techniques we can use to see the calmness during activity?
During activity, step back. Constantly, mentally, step back. Do the work, but with your consciousness a little aloof, so that you are not fatigued. Always remember that there is a silence, there is a peace containing the whole movement, and you should be open to that, relaxed to that belt of silence, to that peace which is always there, and act from that vantage position. So remember there is a peace, remember there is a calm, remember there is a silence. Behind every word there is silence. Behind every movement there is a calm and a peace. Remember that when you are in the midst of work, and that peace and calm will rush on you. Remember that. Step back, step back. Don't throw yourself entirely in any activity. Do the action, but under control, keeping a little of you aloof.
Have you experienced that?
I thought you had.
Have you?
I thought you had. I know. Because I experienced, I thought you had experienced. You see?